Okay, so a cliff jumping happened, and all these guys seem to be more worried about was a thesis.
Drop on by the Clown Cafe. Drop on by the Clown Cafe. The grub is downright gruesome, but your appetite's obey. 'Cause food's a little funny, food's a little funny, food's a little funny at the Clown Cafe. Drop on by the Clown Cafe, your favorite meals on wheels. The menu is disgusting and it's full of special deals. Nothing here is good for you, so grab yourself a tray. 'Cause food's a little funny at the Clown Cafe. Drop on by the Clown Cafe. Drop on by the Clown Cafe. Gobble up your order quick before it runs away. 'Cause food's a little funny at the Clown Cafe. Why not visit after school and have yourselves a bite? An appetizing appetizer certain to delight. We haven't done it right unless it makes your teeth decay. 'Cause food's a little funny at the Clown Cafe. Drop on by the Clown Cafe. Drop on by the Clown Cafe. The grub is downright gruesome, but your appetite's obey. 'Cause food's a little funny, food's a little funny, food's a little funny at the Clown Cafe.
Hey everyone, it's Don G. Corleone here, and I'm here with episode 9 of Halloween Horror Review Season 4. And this episode is going to be for another A24 horror film. And this is also directed by Aster, and this was the one he did at the very year after Hereditary, which was the last episode. And this one was not a family tragedy horror film, it was a breakup horror movie. In a way, more of a crazy, dark breakup film as Ari Aster wants to describe it as, with a cult-like setting, or folk-like setting. And that film was going to be for none other than 2019's MidSommar, which has a misleading poster for some weird reason. So anyway, what's the plot is? Well, Danny and Christian are a young American couple with a relationship on the brink of falling apart. But after a family tragedy keeps them together, Christian invites a grieving Danny to join him and his friends on a trip to a once-in-a-lifetime midsummer festival in a remote Swedish village. What begins as a carefree summer holiday in the North European land of eternal sunlight takes a sinister turn when the insular villagers invite their guests to partake in festivities that render the pastoral paradise increasingly unnerving and viscerally disturbing. Yeah, that's the plot of the film. How was this film made? Well, in May 2018, it was announced that Ari Aster would write and direct the film, with Lars Nilsson serving as producer. Be Real Films, a Swedish company, produced the film alongside Square Peg, with A24 distributing. Aster's previous horror film Hereditary had been a huge critical success that same year, after it made over $80 million, became A24's highest-grossing film worldwide. And according to Ari Aster, he had been approached by Be Real executives Margot Gliss and Patrick Anderson to helm a slasher film set in Sweden, an idea which he initially rejected, as he had no way into the story. Aster ultimately devised a plot which the two central characters are experiencing relationship tensions verging on a breakup, and wrote the surrounding screenplay around this theme. He described the result as a breakup movie dressed in the clothes of a folk horror film. Aster made as mentioned, 1901 Albert Brooks film Modern Romance as an inspiration for MidSommar, and also called it The Wizard of Oz for perverts. Ari Aster had also worked with the film's production designer Henrik Svensson to develop the film's folklore elements and the traditions of the Harga, while visiting Hargessen land together. He researched Huslingegards, centuries-old farms that typically had painting on the walls, and developed a stylized version of the set, as well as midsummer celebrations in Swedish, German, and English folklore. Aster had also researched spiritual movements and communities, saying that he particularly drew inspiration from Rudolf Steiner's Estrossalsi and the movement. Then when it came to casting around July 2018, actors Florence Pugh, Jack Renner, Will Partler, Willem Blomgren, William Jackson Harper, Laura Torcha, and Archie Maduke had joined the cast in July 2018. Then, after the film was eventually shot and marketed, MidSommar will be theatrically released in the United States by A24 on July 3rd, 2019. And in Sweden, it got released by Nordisk Film on July 10th, 2019. When it came to reactions, much similar reactions to Hereditary, it got positive reviews from critics who praised Aster's direction and Pugh's performance, but general audiences were more polarized by it, some being extremely negative. And the box office, it grossed less than Hereditary with $48 million worldwide on a $9 million budget. Now, as for my reaction to this movie, I'll admit, I did used to like this movie when it came out before I'd even started YouTube at the time, although I did agree it was not as great as Hereditary. As the years progressed upon rewatch, though, however, I realized it was not really that great. I mean, I'd still put it over Aster's much worse movie, Beau Was Afraid, or much worse A24 movies like It Comes at Night, The Black Coat's Daughter, and Tusk, especially Tusk. But it's definitely one of my least favorite A24 films. I think what definitely does not help was because even back when I used to like this, I remember this movie having some of the most... Even back when I used to like this, guys, I remember this movie having some of the most insufferably annoying male characters that I had witnessed in both any A24 film and folk horror in general. Undeniably, I did expect more of everything. It's probably, and it also, it'd be difficult to compare everything here with the unserviceable genius of the Wicker Man, but it's definitely far weaker in every possible compartment. My first and major complaint even comes to the endless running time, which was also a problem for me when I first saw this. Like, MidSommar has even little subject matter to fill up in such a long film. The director, and with all the fans, it'll naturally claim the long periods of showing scenic footage, folklore, dance, and chant rituals, and the effects of hallucinating herbs are definitely essential for the atmosphere of the film, but it's incredibly tedious to sit through, especially because this, let's be honest, everybody already knows what's going to be happening. If you have seen The Wicker Man, you can already predict what's going to happen here, because this movie kind of is almost the same exact story as The Wicker Man in almost a lot of ways. I was also disappointed at the lack of horror here, or that kind of shocking feeling one would have after seeing a horror film. And while I understand everything that happens plot-wise, I'm not completely sure what the film was trying to say. It's like they threw a bunch of ideas at the wall hoping one would stick, when none of them really did, and for all the build-up, the story ended up being predictable and flat. And people can say the movie categorizes as a horror and thriller movie, but I disagree with that. There's at most 3 attempted horror scenes, but they're not enough to thrill you. And on top of that, Aster just inflated the scripted cliches that we've seen many times in other horror movies, and consequently, anyone who has spent a bit of time with movies can easily guess what will happen in the next scene. And this is coming from someone who is a fan of the director's previous film, Hereditary. Maybe I just expected too much but I should have realized that Hereditary was just a one-time success that can't really be replicated. The film was too long, too pretentious, too predictable. Before I saw the film, I can already guess the visiting students would be used by the community either as human sacrifices or for reproduction to add to the community's gene pool. In fact, both of these things literally do happen, with the boyfriend of the main character, when it amounts to a rape scene, just being directed to sex, and everyone else except the main character being killed and burnt in a ceremonial sacrifice. Aster knew he didn't want to make just an average conventional horror film, so he used many resources at hand to excel in the genre that often gets depreciated because the lack of quality efforts being put out now every year, basically. These filmmaking resources included unusual long takes without close-up shots, long shots, or American shots, and it gives the film its own distinctive style, combined with the daytime photography, which was absolutely breathtaking, and not many films can pull off perturbing, distressing an audience without the always helpful aid of nighttime. And these technical tools elevate the quality of the narrative and storytelling, which flows naturally without hurry, and taking its time to truly develop cohesively and coherently. Events unfold to aberrant situations such as procreational sex with harmonized moans as part of a fertility ritual to name one. The experience can be unsettling to some people. It's an uncomfortable watch that challenges viewers' perception of the abnormal ways of these Swedish villagers. It pulls what a normal civilization accepts as normal behavior. But the thing is, the film takes just too damn long to get there. And I found my attention wandering quite a few times upon rewatch. And all horror tropes, like in this movie, have been done to death by now, so you have to go this way, though it's sometimes plain directors just don't seem to know. Sometimes I'm all for slowing things down and not turning a movie to a trap into an always constantly trying to be a slasher film, but there's a limit here. The foreboding atmosphere in MidSommar isn't strong enough, and the disturbing visuals get lost amid so much padding. Like, some movies just do the slow down stuff better. John Carpenter's The Thing, for example. It slows down a few times, but it slows down to develop the characters more. Develop Kurt Russell's character. So yeah, you can like Kurt Russell's character, and you can root for Kurt Russell's character at times. Okay, the movie has a good reason to slow down. The Shining had good reasons to be slow. To know more about the hotel and stuff. Plus, The Shining's a Stephen King novel. That had to be long. Stephen King adaptations are always over 2.5 hours. Although I'll admit, guys, that the beginning of this movie started off pretty good, and it gives promise of things to come. But then the rest of the movie, we just end up with another attempted reimagining of the Wicker Man. And this is a 2.5 hour long movie, and apparently they cut out 30 minutes from it to meet the R rating. Because apparently, guys, the movie was originally 171 minutes long. And they say the movie's disturbing, but I bet that 30 minutes was literally the so-called disturbing stuff they couldn't even put in their own movie. This movie's just not even scary at all. Like, it has like one bigger gore scene, a few other gruesome moments, and one laugh out loud scene, and guys, before you're wondering, how do you even know this was going to be 171 minutes? Because I know this because there was a version that was released as a director's cut that is the 171 minute version without any of the edited stuff. That's just not enough, Aster. I mean, you had a good idea, but you just ended up rehashing things we've already seen. And a great ending could have saved this, but no. Like every movie you're doing now, you're rewriting the same ending as Hereditary and just mixed it with The Wicker Man's ending. And made one of the most anticlimactic endings ever. And the characters, they're just not even developed that much for us to feel invested. And Christian specifically, who's literally played by the same guy who played the boyfriend in Transformers Age of Extinction. Christian he's just too generic and just a douchebag for us to care about, and that just gets more unlikable as this movie progresses. And so do his friends. Alright, but let's get on with the beginning of the film. How does this movie start off? Well, we start off with this eerie ritual taking place. Then we cut to a dark, snowy forest with old folks singing as a sound in the background. And then we meet our main character, Danny Ardor, who calls her parents, but all she gets is a voicemail. And she's expressing concern over her bipolar sister, who left this cryptic message recently. And so this makes Danny uncomfortable. She ends up calling her boyfriend, Christian Hughes, who's hanging out with his buddies Josh and Mark and Pell. Christian, on the phone, assures Danny that it's just another one of Terry's episodes, and that's that Danny only feeds into Terry's antics. Then he hangs up, and she gets a call from an unknown number, and then we cut to Christian, Josh, and Mark. Josh and Mark think that Christian is equally douchebag friends that you don't care about. Then Christian should just end his relationship with Danny because it's clear he's wanted that relationship for a while, and I don't know why he just bloody does that shit. In the first place, they are not wrong about that as well. And they're planning this upcoming trip to Sweden, aka Eastern Europe, and Pell suggests they will meet lots of other women there. And yeah, we meet his friends here. and they're already obnoxious and really annoying, with Will Poulter's character being so obsessed with weed. So that pretty much makes it clear that Poulter's character clearly thinks he's fucking Seth Rogen, which is not a good thing in the slightest. We don't need any more Seth Rogens. Like, one Seth Rogen is enough. We don't need any more clones of his kind. Stop it. But anyway, during their irritating conversation, where they're all like, hey, that waitress over there, Christian, you could be getting her pregnant. Yeah, that's great dialogue I want to hear from these idiots. This already sets them off as unlikable. As soon as we meet these guys off the bat, I want them all to die in a fucking car crash on the snowy road, or something like that. Right from the moment we meet the characters. That's not a good thing. So after their obnoxious talk about wanting to get women pregnant, and wanting to meet and date other girls in Sweden on their trip, and Christian to end his relationship, Danny then calls Christian again and is wailing hysterically. And we see authorities literally going to Danny's parents' home, where Terry had literally flooded the house with carbon monoxide and killed her parents before stuffing a tube in her mouth and taping it there as a way of suicide. And then Christian then goes to Danny's apartment to console her, and that's when the opening titles all start. Now, I'm going to admit, guys, Florence's performance is the number one best thing to come out of this movie and opening scene here. So, her performance is the reason why this is a semi-rant and not a rant. Most of the movie I did feel sympathy for her character and whatever she was going through. And honestly, ever since this film, guys, I found Florence to be one of the best British actresses I've seen. Performance in this felt real. And I definitely felt for her character every time she cried or screamed. To me, that definitely makes a star performance. Right there. And the start of the film was promising, with the exception of the restaurant scene where we meet Christian and his friends. And in a true fashion, the camera work was exceptional, and the opening lasts like 30 minutes and sets up the concept of the film, and that's the hardest part for horror. The midsection is slow and does a phenomenal job of building anticipation. Many do hate how slow it is, even I kind of do, while others may likely appreciate it. There are sequences that show the hallucinogenic effects of drugs most accurately to date, and honestly, it's whenever the characters do take a drug or something, the camera work does get a little blurry in front of their point of view, so I like that little detail. I like that things get a little blurry whenever any of the characters do take any of the drugs they get offered, or the drug drink they get offered, and then the camera work does get a little blurry right there, showing that they're drugged and stoned. Alright though, but that being said, let's get on with the bad stuff that happens now. I've already mentioned our 3 unlikable male characters, so let's mention other stuff. One example would be the comment about all the tribes oracles that result of inbreeding, which is extremely messed up and something I don't really want to know. A specific scene that shows none of this, or where they're trying to seem harmless to others, but it's all part of an obvious plan. At the exact same time, we have this member of the tribe telling the American characters that there's no coordinated big scale inbreeding. Those things are clearly not even close to what they seem here. It's literally just almost like Get Out again, in terms of the overall scenario. The characters here just needed to get out of that village as well. And how 2 characters have the intention to write their thesis on this tribe, and the elders reluctantly agree under certain conditions. But they only did so to keep the guys there, because they knew they'd probably never get out to release their thesis or tell anybody about this tribe. And the thing is, they're worried about this thesis after they saw 2 guys jump off a cliff. If I saw some guys jump off a cliff and kill themselves, I'd run the fuck out of the village. I wouldn't give a shit about my thesis assignment. I'd be getting the fuck out of the village. That's something they don't even do. And as for Christian, I almost felt like it could also be on the entire project that there's something evil going on with how he reacted to the double suicide ritual. But looking at what happened to him at the end, he probably obviously wasn't him at all, but seriously, none of these 3 or none of these 4 ever think about running out of the village quick and getting their things and not let any of the villagers know that they're leaving. Or just sneak out while they're all asleep and be gone. The one you can tell is really in on everything is their Swedish buddy Pell. I mean, He may seem charming first, but you know this guy's in on the whole plan. You can tell. I mean, if he lives in that Swedish village, you can tell there's something up with him. If he lives there, something is clearly off. And whenever he does talk to Pugh's character, it's implied that it's definitely kind of implied that he does appreciate her more than he should have, and he's the only one who's kind of the only one in the group who's the least bit of an asshole to Pugh's character most of the time. But it's alright though. I still wonder why. I mean, the thing is though, you already tell this guy's bad. So why should it really be a shock that you selected our May Queen for us and you're appointed one of our biggest successors yet? You know this guy's bad. How is it obvious? It's not that shocking of a twist. I mean, like, he could even probably, maybe he wouldn't know that she would become the new May Queen, but he was just very keen on having outsiders there so the tribe can do with them whenever they want and stuff. But I mean, the costumes are spectacular in the cinematography. You can feel this burning light and heat well through the screen here. It's very well done. And the makeup and sets are done as well, right? But even though they cut out like 30 minutes of the original cut, they should have cut out like 30 more minutes here. And maybe it'd be slightly a bit better. And it probably would drag around less. Because there are scenes and sequences that still feel like filler material, even with the 30 minutes of the extended cut out of the movie. The story after was just told in a slow pace, and there were still some sins to add on. Like, first, like, how come there's like no signal or any sign of electricity that Josh is able to charge his laptop, phone, and headphones and still use them after days in? I mean, there's no phone signal in that village, but somehow Josh can literally charge his appliances, though. One of Christian's friends literally can still use his electronics with no low battery. And another thing, though, if the character's not leaving after the cliff jump was a foolish idea, they still don't leave after Josh and Mark literally go missing to thin air, and Christian and Danny don't seem to immediately be suspicious about it, but they get suspicious when Simon just left Connie to go on the train by himself. There's they're not the only outsiders, guys. There's two others that get invited. And those two do try to leave after they see the cliff jump, but they literally the stupidest thing about that is, they let the village know their plans, so they die. If they wanted to get out of there alive, they could have just like left that night while the cult was asleep, just snuck out while they were all asleep, and then they'd probably get out successfully. That's when they should have left. They shouldn't have announced to the village that they were leaving at all. Because that's the thing, like some characters are not only unlikable, but most of the characters are stupid. Whenever anyone in the group goes missing, none of them seem to really mind or notice. Like, no, whoa. The Christian's all like, my friends are gone. My girlfriend's joining this cult. Okay, I'll stay. I'll stay and just take this clearly drugged drink. I'll stay and watch the May Queen dance or the May Queen ritual. I don't mind that my friends have gone missing. Because he's an idiot. Well, not entirely, but... Well, to be fair, there was also one other sacrifice scene that's from the director's cut. I remember seeing this scene back when the director's cut scenes were on YouTube. There's one other ritual that takes place at night. And it's an attempted sacrifice ritual of a kid that's kind of like a suicide. Danny stops it from happening. And like, I think there was this shot where Christian and his friends were literally just smiling at the whole thing as if they thought it was funny. And then her and Christian got into an argument about wanting to leave. And I'm like, dude, your girlfriend has a point. You just saw a cliff death and now a planned execution. Wouldn't that be a sign to get the fuck out of that village and not worry about your stupid thesis? For a change, I think Danny should have left, definitely. Because he does tell her to leave during their arguments, and that's what he should have did. And that's what she should have did. Just leave them all to die. I mean, they're clearly not going to take your warning seriously, so... But no, they say the whole time with predictable results. And I mentioned the thesis part because after the cliff death, once Christian and Josh get back from watching the whole cliff jump, there's this dumb scene about both of them being worried about a stupid thesis assignment instead of just forgetting it and leaving right away. Like, I'd rather fail my thesis assignment and still be alive than stay to write a stupid thesis and obviously, get sacrificed in a bear suit and die. And the two couple that were not with them but came through another villager's pleas try to leave, but they foolishly announce it to the village rather than just sneak out like actually smart people. So then to sneak out without the cult even knowing they left. And another stupid thing one of them does is the obnoxious stoner Will Poulter guy, the guy that Will Poulter plays, he goes to piss on a tree right in the middle of the damn village and doesn't even think about just go to the damn forest to do it. Or just go into the damn bush to do it. Or the forest. There's like a forest right near you guys. You could have went there. And then once he pisses on the tree, one of the villagers gets all mad. It's like, stop what you're doing. Stop what you're doing. Put your dick back in your pants. You just pissed on an ash full of our dead ancestors. Because apparently the ashes of dead people on that tree. He's all like, whatever, I didn't know it was special to them. I needed to piss. And not surprisingly, he's the first of Christian's group to die. So that guy thankfully goes quick. And people say this movie's gory. Yeah, it's gore. Yeah, there's gore in like the cliff scene and that's it. It's not even epic kind of gore. And once Poulter dies, the horror is kind of just starting to begin. Josh is our next one to die because he attempts to sneak into one of their areas to get his so-called important thesis done, but one villager is wearing Poulter's peeled face for a mask and straight up kills him with a hammer. And then the next morning, none of the remaining two seem to notice much at all or care that their two friends have disappeared into thin air, and one of their friends seems to live in this village with them. Ever think to maybe just fucking leave? Now would be the time to leave. No. They don't think to leave. Let's totally stay for the final day with predictable results. And next here we get the finale of this movie. Danny pretty much joins the women in the village in a competition where they dance around a maypole, like pretty much playing some cult version of musical chairs before each woman is eliminated. And after taking this drug she gets offered, Danny finds herself being able to speak in Swedish with the other women. And Danny is the last one standing, so she's crowned the May Queen after winning cult musical chairs. As I like to call this so-called dance game that they do. Meanwhile, as Christian's kind of observing this whole event, he's offered this drink that induces a trip. He originally is like, nah, I won't drink it. I don't know. He originally declines to drink it at first, but as soon as Danny and the other women leave in a cart to burn this pork chop in the middle of a landscape, he says fuck it, give me that shit. And takes it anyway. It's clearly drug, dude, and you're still gonna take this shit? It's like, wow. Is he really that big of a moron? It's clearly got drugs in there. I would decline that shit. And then, of course, after he takes the drug, we get this bizarre out-of-nowhere cringe sex scene where he's lured and taken to take another villager's virginity and get her pregnant. So the idiot douchebag boyfriend has sex with her while these other elder naked females stand around nude around them and mimic Maja's moaning. Yeah, that's real comforting. I get to see a bunch of old ladies nude with their vaginas showing, and I get with their pubic hair showing, and the wrinkled old unattractive bodies, and I get to see some douchebag boyfriend's bare pale white ass and his dick hanging out. I don't need to see that, okay? Then after Danny's crowned the May Queen, gets back from burning the pork chop in the dirt hole, she watches Christian having sex with the villager through a hole in the door, and that causes Danny to have an emotional breakdown. She then goes to cry, and the other women join her, sympathetically crying loudly and yelling with her and stuff which the scene didn't really make any sense. Then we cut back to the naked douchebag boyfriend and the naked villager having sex, and the naked old ladies around them. And then after Christian climaxes, the douchebag boyfriend gets mortified, and he runs out to try and find Danny, but he ends up discovering Josh's leg buried in the dirt. And there's literally a van like right next to the boyfriend. And instead of just hijacking the van in front of him, hot wiring it, and just driving the fuck out of the village, he runs and hides into the fucking hen house, since he's clearly an idiot. So yeah, you pretty much have the douchebag boyfriend from Transformers Age of Extinction running around the village showing his naked pale ass to everybody who doesn't want to see it, runs right into the hen house, sees one of the other Lord Citizens' mutilated corpse being used as a blood eagle, and then moments later, he's literally found and knocked out when a villager blows smoke into his face. No, I'm not kidding. He literally gets knocked out by fucking smoke, and he falls unconscious when smoke gets blown into his face. And then the end of the ritual draws near, and the elders bring the paralyzed Christian and a villager named Torbjorn before Danny, and she's supposed to. And it's on to the final sacrifice part. 2 villagers are being sacrificed because they offered their bodies, apparently. The corpses of the douchebag boyfriend's friends are going to be sacrificed and burned. And the 2 couple that try to leave, but they stupidly announce their plans. And now the May Queen apparently gets to choose the final person to be sacrificed as part of the whole tradition. Because 9 people are sacrificed in this whole festival. And that was the 2 elders, the 4 outsiders, the 2 living volunteers, and 1 chosen by the May Queen, Danny herself. And after all she's gone through, which is clearly, and she, of course, picks, which obviously is an obvious pick for her, with as soon as this scene even starts, she picks Christian. It's really not that, it's pretty obvious she's going to pick Christian to die. Then the men of the village take this fully grown bear, kill it, disembowel it, so they can place Christian inside the bear's corpse, and apparently the extended cut reveals that they sawed off his legs. In a way, so there's that. So I guess that kind of shows how he fits into that bear. Then they bring him, Igmar, the corpses of the other 4 outsiders that got lured there, to the golden teepee, and it's set on fire. And since Christian is paralyzed and unable to move or speak, he pretty much succumbs to his fate while only being able to wheeze in pain, and Ulf screams in terror and Igmar just watches. Then the villagers mimic their screams again, and Danny appears to have a breakdown for what's happening again, but as she continues to watch the teepee go up in flames, and watches the unified and hears the unified wailing of the villagers, a demented smile then begins to form on her face. And that's how the movie ends. Not like this would have any happy ending in the first place, and knowing it's Aster, he just wanted to repeat his success with Hereditary, but it felt predictable, and he should have learned about the problems with his ending for Hereditary. Ever thought of, I don't know, maybe not repeating that shit again, and try making some of the characters smart and likable? No. Because this guy thinks he's M. Night Shyamalan. Which he's not, and you should never compare yourself to M. Night Shyamalan in the first place, because it's not good to be compared to M. Night Shyamalan, knowing how his career's turned out. So yeah, at the end of the movie, Danny is predictably the sole survivor, and the people she came with are all dead. I wonder, they never touch up. I wonder what's going to happen to her afterwards. Does she stay in the village and hooks up with Pella as her new boyfriend, or does she just casually return to America like nothing ever happened? They never touch up on what happens after the festival. Do they just shut down the village and they just go home, pretend to be, and just reunite for this one time? Or something like that? They never know. We never know. We never know at all. Oh, and the poster beside me is so misleading because in it It's clearly a shot of Danny crying horrified tears while dressed up in the cult's outfit or something, and it looks like as if she's about to be murdered or tortured or something. Well, guess what, guys? She isn't. She's the only one of the whole movie that's not even murdered or tortured by the cult at all in the slightest. So you don't think maybe this poster should have been an actual member of the cult that actually does die in the movie to avoid being so misleading at all? I wouldn't know. That's what I would have done if I had directed this movie. Not make it as misleading as hell. Now, yes, I will admit, guys, it had some things I liked. I already mentioned, like the cinematography and the one performance I liked. The shots of Sweden are gorgeous. The soundtrack is creepy and has excellent build-up. Almost everybody else Danny's with is just obsessed with pot, sex, and just be a stupid asshole that doesn't try to think clearly at all. Like, who obsesses over a thesis after witnessing a murder instead of just leaving the damn place? And the plot is even so undermined by the overly extended need to implement something creepy that had little to do with continuing the storyline. And the movie is literally the same exact movie as The Wicker Man anyway. So, all in short, guys, it's great the first time around, but now it's just mediocre as the years have progressed. In the end, MidSommar is really either a stream online for A24 fans or an avoid altogether for horror fans that hate A24 and hated Hereditary, because those guys aren't going to get anything better here than they did last time. Anyways, that's it for my view of MidSommar. And if you're wondering how I'm going to rank MidSommar, here's how I'm going to rank this movie. So overall, if you are an A24 fan or folk horror fan, this is just a stream online. But if you are not a fan of those and hated Hereditary, then this is an avoid because you won't get any improvements for your negative experience of Hereditary. And if you're wondering how I'm going to rank MidSommar, I'm going to give MidSommar a 5.5 out of 10. There we go. That wraps up my review for MidSommar. And you're wondering, what's going to be the next episode? Well, our next episode is going to be for a phenomenal movie now. And it's going to be one from the 90s. And this movie stars a cannibal. You want a hint, guys? I'll give you this quote as a hint. Hello, Clarice. That movie. That movie's next, guys. And until then, that'll be it for this episode. Thank y'all for watching. If you like this, want to see more, don't forget to like, subscribe to Don G. Corleone.